losing sleep lately, recalling all the memories. I wish that I could go back.
The E85 generation BMW Z4M is one of the M Division's most underrated and unknown cars. Debuting in 2006, it was BMW's second take on a two-seat roadster, preceded by the Z3M. Now, the Z4M was built to compete with the Porsche Cayman S, and in order to do that, they equipped it with the S54 inline-6 out of the earlier M3. But that's not the only M3 goodies that they put on the Z4. They also equipped it with the CSL M3's steering rack and front and rear brakes, making a complete package that meshed M3 Z4 and M3 CSL. At its release, the Z4 styling was met with a love-or-hate reaction. There was seldom anything in between. However, I think it's aged exceptionally well. This is a car that looks maybe 3 or 4 years old to me, not 15. It has the proportions of all great classic roadsters, long front end, aggressive rear. I also love the side profile with these long lines accentuating the front end and running down the length of the car. From the front 3/4, the wide rear haunches are also made really apparent. Now, much of what I'm going to say here is going to mirror what I said about the E46 M3. It's well laid out, it's ergonomic, and the quality level is very high. The material choices and everything are fantastic. Now, the seats aren't particularly soft for a long journey, but they're not uncomfortable and they're extremely well bolstered. They keep you in on tight corners. Now, the other thing is that they just look flat out amazing. They're a really well-styled seat, they're very sculpted, and they look fantastic when you have the top down. Now, honestly, if it was me, I would avoid the GPS like the plague, because I think that it destroys this beautiful line that you get down the center of the dash, and it dates the car. It's not a modern-looking GPS anymore, and it shows. So if you can, I would get one without it. Now, overall, it feels as upscale and exotic as the rest of the car, which is a really important thing, I think. I think that when you get into these interiors, you want to be wowed by the level of quality, just as you're wowed by the exterior styling and the way it drives. That's important when you're at a car of this magnitude. Now, the ergonomics are surprisingly good for a small car. It's all well thought out and it's all very comfortable and easy to use. What it doesn't have is storage space. The glove box is a place to put your title and your registration, and that's it. Maybe Tic Tacs. Not a whole lot else. The most substantial storage space comes in the form of the little compartment behind you. It's not practical, and it wasn't built to be, so don't expect it to be. If the E46 M3 is sharp and accurate like a knife, then this Z4M is a scalpel. There is an edge that the M3 just does not have at this level. The front end is so direct and so immediate. A good amount of that comes from the CSL steering rack, so you're getting an extremely tight rack. There's good feedback, it's hydraulic. I really don't want for much as far as the steering goes, and also the steering wheel is one of the best that I've ever used. It's about as large as I would go in terms of thickness, and it's set up perfectly for a good steering wheel position. Now, the steering is heavy, but it's not over boosted. You don't get a sensation of it being artificial. Now, the thing that adds the most drama to this car, I think, is those classical proportions. The fact that you are sitting on the rear axle, it's a very interesting sensation, and it's not something that you get in many modern cars. Now, it's thrilling to drive quickly. It's a challenge, and that's why it's such a thrill. Whereas the M3 is almost a dance partner with you. It's going to work in tandem. It's going to make you almost look like a better driver than maybe you are. This doesn't have that. This is a balanced car, but it has that edge to it, where if you mess up, this is a car that will humble you. You can feel that this is a car that if you push it in the wrong way and you're not prepared, it's going to snap, and it's going to snap hard. Now, part of the specific reasoning for why this car has that character, it's the shorter wheelbase. It makes it much more snappy and it's much less progressive should it start to step out or if it starts to slide. The M3 comes out in such a really smooth manner compared to this where when it steps out, it snaps. And so you have to be prepared. And the steering makes it easy to do, but you really do have to be on your game if you're going to drive this car hard. Now, overall, the stock suspension is very effective. There's very little body roll, and the car is actually well damped for what it is. You don't expect a car like this to ride well over unsmooth pavement or bumps or the likes, but it really doesn't get that upset by it. What it does do fairly poorly is mid-corner bumps. The chassis gets upset by that. I think it's a combination of the spring rates in the rear. It's a little soft, the short wheelbase, and a number of different things, I'm sure, but it just does not like mid-corner bumps. It doesn't move around completely, but it's an uneasy feeling. The car feels nervous. So I think that it would benefit from an aftermarket suspension setup, maybe something a little bit stiffer, or at least just a little bit stiffer in the rear. Now, another thing to note with the stock suspension is that it likes to squat under acceleration, and that's another reason that I think that the rear spring rates, they're a little soft. So that's another thing that an aftermarket suspension would 100% fix. It's not a huge problem, it's not like it really squats that much, but you can notice it for sure. Basically, what all of that adds up to is that this is a car overall that you need to pay attention to. It's about the act of driving, and I like that. I don't think I would have enjoyed a car that was easier to drive than this. This is a car that I'm working myself up to. I'm trying to meet this car in the middle rather than getting in a car and immediately being able to just do whatever you want in it comfortably. This is a car that I've had to respect. Now, something that I, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to really like about this car is just the size. Your favorite back roads, no matter how small they are, no matter how tight it gets, you're never going to feel uncomfortable. Now, I tend to think that this engine and car combo is just a match made in heaven. Small, little two-seat Roadster and a big inline six. It's good. It's real good. What a way to send off this motor. I really can't imagine a better application for it. The E86 M3 deserved to have this engine for sure, but the Z4, it just suits it so perfectly. Low, long, slung, little two-seat Roadster with an engine that's this high-strung, this exciting. It's perfect. So even though it may have deserved to be a hit, the Z4M ended up being a low production car. 3,000 of the Roadsters in the United States and even less of the coupes. Now, I'm not here to speculate why that was. I'm here to tell you what that means today. And what it means today is that these cars are holding their value exceptionally well, they're rare, and in the case of the coupes especially, they're already appreciating at a very impressive rate. And it makes sense, doesn't it? The last application of a legendary engine. Classically proportioned looks, beautiful interior, and thrilling driving dynamics. And at the end of the day, that's why this one's mine.